Wherefore, Series 3, Episode 18. This week's episode takes us into the complex religious life of Ditchley Yat, its history of heresy, and the controversy that remains hotly debated to this day. This scholarly insight has been made available by Professor Bob Fry and Robin Treefellow, who definitely isn't the Wizard Wigston wearing a slightly more conventional hat. I hereby hand you over to Professor Bob Fry and the unprofessing Mr. Robin Treefellow. Despite Turlough Ditchley's attempt to heretically debate the matter, the Bible is quite clear about how many heads the great beast possesses. That's the beast upon which the whore of Babylon rides. Yes, that one. The number is 7. Revelations chapter 17, verse 3. However, it also adds that the beast also possesses 10 horns. As 10 does not divide equally into 7, this has led to much debate about the distribution of heads and horns. For example, do 5 heads have 2 horns and 2 heads none? In 1390, Turlough Ditchley maintained that 3 heads had 3 horns each, and 1 head had 1 horn, and the remaining 3 heads had none. But this was judged extreme heresy, and Turlough was lucky to escape a plumbing, being pelted, in theory, to death, but actually into a very sticky state with plums. This was a popular punishment in old Ditchley Yat. In even earlier other times, others were heard to espouse the view that one head had 10 horns and 6 heads none. Reputedly, St. Eardwulf was particularly infuriated by this view. Legend has it that he would preach a fiery sermon to the shrews and levitating weasels in Ditchley, denouncing such ungodly horn-head distribution until nearby turnips would spontaneously combust, ignited by his pious fury. In the more enlightened Victorian era, the Reverend Septimus Ditchley of St. Eardwulf's, Ditchley, argued for an equal distribution of horns amongst the heads. He published a pamphlet proving through the application of pure reason that there was 1 3/7 of a horn for each head. The main criticism of his treatise can be summed up by the following question: what constitutes 3/7 of a horn? To create 3/7 of a horn, you have to remove 4/7. If you take these 4/7 from the base of a horn, you simply have a whole horn, but shorter. If you take the 4/7 from the pointed tip of the horn, have you actually got a horn at all, or just a truncated, flat-topped structure that is not a functioning horn? Thus, you either have all 7 heads with a large and a small horn present on each, equaling an heretical 14 horns on the great beast, or you have 7 heads with 1 horn and a truncated, not really a horn thing on each, which certainly does not equal the 10 horns specified in the Bible. That's what the application of pure reason will get you. The learned Reverend answered these criticisms by completely ignoring them. Anyway, his theory would certainly have been judged heretical by St. Eardwulf, and would in medieval times have earned the believer a good ducking in the Yat Brook, the main watercourse in Ditchley Yat. Strangely, this is exactly what happened to Reverend Ditchley in 1881. The villagers of Ditchley apparently reinstated the old custom just for him. Your narrator further notes that in hot weather it remains a popular local custom to argue about the distribution of horns and then bring out the ducking stool. Modern residents of Ditchley are always quick, in the summer, to draw attention to their own heresy so as to be properly ducked in the river. It's rather a nice way of cooling off, and there's a pleasant community feeling around the business of shouting disagreements about whether a fraction of a horn is really a whole extra horn or not. I am increasingly suspicious that Professor Bob Fry is from Ditchley himself, and that he is out in the world to spread some Ditchley awareness. This is not, to be clear, an outright assertion that he is the propaganda wing for the Valley, or that he is carrying out some other complex Ditchley-related agenda. But he definitely could be. His great insight into the history of the place could easily be explained by being a denizen of the Extra Valley. Despite my best efforts, he remains at present unwilling to comment. That does tend to suggest innocence. I rather imagine that a properly nefarious plan would have included a clear backstory for himself, explaining both his enthusiasm and his insight. Unless this is some very cunning double bluff.